What's up, guys? So I'm here because I think I've cracked how Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave is going to play out. Now, before we get into that, I kind of want to figure out what is Nintendo's goal with this new Fire Emblem game. You see, after the success of Three Houses, Fire Emblem was probably stronger than it's ever been. That game sold like 5 million units, people were talking about it, people loved it, and it became a pretty iconic game for the Switch library. Fast forward a few years later, and they released Fire Emblem Engage, which is a game that I personally love. However, it's a bit, controversial in the Fire Emblem fan base. You see, I think the goal of this game is to kind of reintroduce a bit of that Three Houses conversation into the mix. And what I mean by that is that I think one of the reasons Three Houses did so well is because of the split route mechanic. Now, am I saying that Fortune's Weave is just going to take that mechanic and do it again? No, that's not what I think is going to happen. However, I do think they want to invite a bit of that discussion element back into it, because I do think that's something that helped Three Houses out a lot, was people discussing, hey man, how's your Black Eagles route looking? How's your Blue Lions route looking? Things like that. So I've been kicking back and thinking, how can you get a similar result without just repeating the same thing? And as I keep looking at the trailer over and over, you know, the only trailer we've gotten in like a year, something occurred to me. I sensed something a little familiar. Now, I'm about to say something that's probably gonna get people hating me, but I strongly believe that Three Houses was influenced by the Persona series in some way, with like the calendar system, the redone social system. I'm not saying it's copying it. However, the history of game development is just people looking at other games, taking mechanics and reincorporating them into their own game and adding to them. So I'm not saying it's a bad thing, I'm just saying it's something I noticed coming right off of Persona 5 going to Three Houses. Now, why do I bring that up? Well, because there's another game made by Atlas that the more I look at Fortune's Weave, the more I think, I've seen this before. Something about this seems familiar. And then it hit me. What if you get the different conversation not by different routes, but by using an alignment system? Now, for those of you who don't know, Persona was a spin-off of Shin Megami Tensei, a game that deals a lot more with bigger, complex themes. Rather than just simply good versus evil, beat the big bad guy and win, it's a game a lot more about different perspectives and whose perspective comes out on top, despite the fact that none of these perspectives are perfect and each come with their own set of inherent flaws. Right away, you can see how this is already more in line with how Three Houses plays out. Three Houses itself is a game about perspective, and there's not really a perfect ending, just what ending you think is right. And I think that's what they're going to try to replicate. Look, I'll cut to the chase. I think Fortune's Weave is going to take from SMT the same way that Three Houses took from Persona. Now I know that's a little crazy, but let me sell this to you a bit. In SMT, you typically have 3 different alignments. You have your law alignment, your neutral alignment, and your chaos alignment. By the way, I'm not an expert on SMT, I've only played a couple of games, but I think I've played enough to crack the code. So in SMT, and I'll just use specifically SMT 5 because this is the one I'm most familiar with, you have your law alignment, which is typically preserving the natural order. You have your neutral alignment, which is a bit more self-motivated, and you have your chaos alignment, which is, hey, fuck the world, it sucks, we're gonna start over and do things a different way. In Shin Megami Tensei, you get to know these characters throughout the journey, and they kind of represent ideals of how the world should be. Some of them want to preserve it, some want to destroy it, some are pretty indifferent towards it, and they just want to do what they want to do. Depending on the choices you make throughout the game and who you side with more, you'll kind of lock yourself into one of several different endings, usually aligned with one of these characters, and in doing so, you usually end up having to fight the other characters as well. Because it's the idea of like, my worldview is better than yours, which is a very Three Houses thing. However, the difference is throughout this game, I think you're going to be bouncing between these 3 characters rather than picking one to hang out with pretty early on in the game. So let's look at the 4 characters we have here. The character on the left, I think his name is Kai. I think it's pretty clear that that's going to be our protagonist. We saw him running around the Garrick Mach-esque environment between battles. He's like the first guy we see do battle. I think it's safe to say that this is probably our player character, but he's not going to be a quiet character like Byleth. He's probably going to be more like Alir or a typical Fire Emblem protagonist. So that leaves these other 3, and I think they fall into this alignment triangle pretty nicely. Now, I think this girl here, the cool queen-looking chick who's definitely not Rhea, I think she's a perfect fit to be our law representative. Law just typically means order, preserving the state of the world as is, but that's not necessarily always a good thing, because maybe the way the world is does suck, and the law representative just wants to kind of keep things in that order. And she feels like she kind of just fits that part nice and natural. She's the queen, she wants to maintain power, all that kind of stuff. So for right now, let's just slot her into our law representative. That just leaves neutral and chaos. Well, I think our chaos representative between the two is probably our dancer chick here, because she's very much about like revenge. She's very much like summoning these demonic beasts from three houses. I could very much see her being a character who hates the system and just wants to overthrow it. In fact, getting so lost in the sauce of overthrowing the world that she summons something that she can't control. Probably a dragon, given, how this franchise works. And that just leaves Alucard right here, who I would wager is probably our neutral representative. The best I can gather is that he seems to be from another country, because the cutscene we see of him is he's on a boat, so he's probably here for a very personal reason. He talks about fighting something again, and he's kind of just the natural fit for the third slot. I could see these two maybe switching alignments, but I'm feeling pretty good that Dancer Chick's going to be our Chaos alignment, and that would just leave Alucard with our neutral alignment. I don't think any of these characters are going to be necessarily black or white, good and evil, and I think that's going to be the point. Okay, so what? Who cares? There's these different characters on these different alignments. Why does that matter? Well, because I think this is going to be telling of how they're going to recapture that Three Houses magic without just repeating Three Houses. And I think there's another Fire Emblem game that we need to take a look at in order to understand how that's going to work. In Fire Emblem Radiant Dawn, the game's divided into 4 acts. In the first 3 acts, you switch between different sets of characters. And in the 4th act, you bring all these characters together and execute a big, cool finale where you fight more dragons and other things. And it's cool, it's great, and I could see them pulling something like that, where basically the game's split into 4 acts. In Act 1, you hang out with one character, Act 2, you hang out with another, Act 3, you hang out with another, and Act 4, depending on who you aligned with most. Act 4 will play out different for everybody. There will probably be 3 different Act 4s, if that makes sense. It seems to be some sort of gladiator game thing, so maybe the teams are constantly changing. Maybe your characters recruited to different teams throughout the events of the game. And as you hang out with these characters, they're going to tell you about how they think the world should be, what they think is truly going on, and you're going to be able to be like, I agree with you, I disagree with you, I'm willing to fight for you, I'm not willing to fight for you, and that'll probably push you into one of the 3 endings. So basically, rather than your route splitting at the beginning of the game, your route would split more near the end. However, still with enough time for you to have a couple chapters play out where you get to see the unique consequences of the actions you've made. Will you choose to preserve the way the world is? Will you choose to uproot the world? Or do you choose to just promote your own selfish desires? And I think there's one more character that we need to take a look at, and it's probably not the one you're thinking. So in the trailer, we see this girl with glasses who's hanging out with our character Kai. I don't know what her name is, but I think she's going to be a lot more important than you think. If we're taking the idea that this game is pulling from the Shin Megami Tensei franchise, there's a bit more going on than just your standard alignment system. Shin Megami Tensei stands for True Goddess Reincarnation. That is its English translation, I'm pretty sure. And the games usually deal with just that. There's a character that's not our protagonist, who is actually the reincarnation of a goddess, and in the act of reincarnating, allows our protagonist to take action and change the fate of the world.
If this stirs your heart even a little, then we must make for the throne. Create a new world, one according to your vision.
That's a very simplified way of putting it. It's probably not even that accurate. Point is, there's a goddess, she picks a person, reincarnates into them, and that kind of has a big impact on the story. Now, we luckily have already been introduced to our goddess. In fact, we've known the goddess of this world for a while now, Sothis. And we see Sothis in the trailer talking to someone, but I don't think this is our protagonist that she's talking to. I think she's talking to this girl, because I think this girl is the person that is going to be reincarnated into Sothis. Now, will this happen in the game? I actually think it will, because that's kind of a Chekhov's gun that was never really fired off from Three Houses, that Sothis was going to reincarnate. They kind of do that in Three Hopes, the spin-off game, but not to its full extent. I think it's fair to say that Sothis probably will actually come back in this game in some physical form. Now, is this by her design? Is this a nefarious group trying to bring her back for some reason? I don't know. It's hard to say because we don't know when this game takes place relative to Three Houses. Is it a prequel? Is it a sequel? Is it a different world entirely? Who knows? It's really hard to say because Nintendo won't tell us anything about it, but I suspect we'll probably get more information soon. But if I was a betting man, here's the gist of everything. This game will feature an alignment system, Queen Girl's Law, Alucard's neutral, Dancer Chick is chaos, Girl with Glasses is going to be our vessel for Sothis to reincarnate into, and then Kai's our protagonist who's ultimately going to be the one bouncing between these characters and be the one who chooses the fate of the world based on who he aligns with. And the game will probably end with you either fighting a dragon or a goddess. The hype play, and I don't know how this would make sense narratively, would be if Sothis is the final boss. Actually, no. Scratch that, because now I'm thinking about it, Sothis is probably going to be the goddess who is directly opposing whatever god is kind of putting this game into place. Is it this guy who's maybe voiced by Matt Mercer? I don't know, but I actually could see that being the case where Sothis is kind of there, she's opposing like a god, and she reincarnates because shit just hits the fan at the end of the second act, and she's like, hey, sorry Glasses Girl, I think you're cool, but I just need to take your body and use it because you're just not suited for the task. But yeah, I'm feeling pretty good about this. I think it would be cool. It's just kind of fun to speculate about the game, and this is something that I haven't heard a lot of people talking about. A way to kind of recapture a bit of that Three Houses hype with the different systems and the different armies and the different perspectives, but without just duplicating it. And also, I think it would be nice because it kind of gives you a lot more time with all these characters. But that's just my theory. Let me know what you think below. I think it would be pretty cool. We should be finding out pretty soon. I expect Nintendo's probably gonna have a direct in like June, so I imagine we'll hear about it by then, if not before. So I'm excited. Anyways, have a good day.